woke feminism is making a real difference or just a buzzword causing confusion. With its growing presence in politics, media, and social platforms, it's time to ask what it's really all about. Is it pushing society toward true equality, or is it creating more division than progress? Let's dive in and find out. To really get into the issues with woke feminism, we first need to break it down a bit. So what exactly is it? Well, woke feminism is an offshoot of the more traditional feminist movement, which has always been about striving for equality between men and women. But here's the twist. The term woke didn't always belong to feminism. It actually came from African American vernacular English, where it originally meant being awake or aware, specifically being aware of social injustices like racial inequality. Now, when we apply woke to feminism, it refers to a more extreme, almost hyper-aware form of activism. It's not just about gender equality. It's about being highly sensitive to and calling out the systems that oppress not just women, but also marginalized groups based on race, gender identity, and sexuality. It's about identifying power imbalances and being vigilant about social issues that affect these groups. And while being aware of these issues is crucial, sometimes woke feminism takes it a step too far, making it feel less like progress and more like a call-out culture that divides rather than unites. But why does it feel like it goes too far sometimes? Well, that's where the controversy lies. At its core, woke feminism wants to address not just gender inequality but also the intersectionality of oppression. This means it looks at how race, class, sexual orientation, and other identities intersect with gender, shaping individual experiences. However, some critics argue that this overemphasis on identity politics can be harmful, not only for women but for society as a whole. One of the biggest critiques of woke feminism centers around its focus on identity politics. Now, don't get me wrong. Recognizing people's lived experiences, especially based on race, gender, and sexuality, is super important. But here's the thing, when you focus too much on these identities, it can start to create more division than unity. Instead of bringing people together around common goals, identity politics can end up pitting them against each other. It's like we're all supposed to rally around a shared cause, but instead, we end up arguing over who's more oppressed or who has the louder voice. In some cases, that divisiveness takes away from the bigger picture. The fight for true equality and social justice for everyone. Imagine a situation where a woman is not seen as a woman, but as a member of a specific racial or sexual identity first. This can create unnecessary divisions between groups that should be working together for shared goals. Woke feminism, with its hyper-focus on these differences, can make it difficult for people to unite and form coalitions across different backgrounds. Instead of focusing on fighting patriarchy or advancing women's rights, people get caught up in arguing about who is the most oppressed. Shouldn't we be more focused on the common ground between men and women, rather than dividing them into categories of privilege and oppression? Another big issue that often gets tangled up with woke feminism is cancel culture. You know how it goes. Someone says or does something that gets labeled as problematic and suddenly they're canceled. This could mean boycotting them, shaming them online, or even pushing for their career to end. It's understandable to call out harmful behavior, especially when it's contributing to injustice or perpetuating harmful views. But here's the tricky part, there's a fine line between holding someone accountable and just shutting down open dialogue altogether. When cancel culture goes too far, it can make people too afraid to speak their minds, even when they're trying to learn or grow. Instead of fostering understanding or encouraging growth, it can just silence important conversations. In the world of woke feminism, people who hold different views, even if they are well-meaning, can be easily labeled as misogynistic, racist, or transphobic. This creates an atmosphere where people are afraid to speak their minds for fear of being canceled. Is this really the best way to approach gender equality? Shouldn't we foster conversations and debates that allow room for diverse perspectives rather than simply silencing those who disagree? A significant concern with woke feminism is that it often feels disconnected from the struggles of everyday women. Most women are dealing with issues like workplace inequality, access to healthcare, and the challenges of balancing work and family. Yet woke feminism can sometimes prioritize abstract issues like microaggressions or the specific experiences of marginalized communities, leaving mainstream women feeling unheard. The everyday challenges faced by many women might not always align with the ideas presented by woke feminists. For example, concerns like wage gaps, reproductive rights, and harassment remain central to most women's lives. However, some woke feminist movements tend to place more emphasis on symbolic gestures like changing language or focusing on the experiences of those who are not represented in mainstream feminism. How helpful is this if the goal is to make real, tangible progress for all women? Here's something interesting. Woke feminism sometimes has a hard time being as inclusive as it claims to be. At its core, feminism should be about fighting for all women's rights, no matter where they come from or what they believe. But with woke feminism, certain groups of women often feel left out. For example, women who don't identify with the latest gender ideologies or those who don't fully buy into the intersectionality framework might find themselves sidelined. It's ironic, right? The very movement that's supposed to be about inclusivity can sometimes end up pushing some women to the margins just because they don't agree with every single part of the movement. This becomes particularly apparent when the movement overlooks or disregards the voices of women who don't fit the right mold. For example, conservative women, white women, or even some working-class women might feel that their concerns are dismissed in favor of more radical views. This kind of exclusion can create a fractured feminist movement, one that can't seem to agree on the most basic principles. Can feminism truly move forward if it's not even inclusive of all women? Shouldn't feminism aim to unite women, not divide them? Another aspect of woke feminism is the relationship with men. While traditional feminism has always included the notion that men should also be allies in the fight for gender equality, woke feminism sometimes seems to view men primarily as part of the problem. Men are often seen as the oppressors rather than potential allies in the movement for social change. This us versus them mentality can create hostility and resentment. It can make it harder for men to get involved in gender equality conversations without feeling like they're being accused of all the world's injustices. Shouldn't the movement for gender equality include men as well, rather than painting them as the enemy? Woke feminism is known for its heightened sensitivity to microaggressions. Even small, unintentional actions can be seen as deeply offensive. While addressing real harm is important, it sometimes feels like the movement creates an environment where people are afraid to speak freely, worried about being called out for the smallest slip-up. This focus on victimhood can be disempowering. Instead of empowering individuals to rise above challenges, it encourages them to view themselves primarily as victims of society's larger oppressive structures. Woke feminism's focus on political correctness can sometimes feel a bit stifling. Sure, it's important to use inclusive language and be thoughtful about how words or actions might affect marginalized groups. That's a good thing. But when the policing of language becomes too rigid, it can actually shut down real conversations. People start feeling like they have to tiptoe around every topic, afraid to share their opinions even when they have something valid to say. It creates this environment where fear of saying the wrong thing keeps important discussions from even happening. Political correctness can also hinder free expression, which is essential in any healthy democratic society. If certain topics are off limits for fear of backlash, how can we have open and honest conversations about gender, race, and power dynamics? In conclusion, woke feminism has sparked important conversations, but it also raises concerns about divisiveness, oversensitivity, and alienating potential allies. Real progress for women happens when all voices are heard and we unite to tackle the challenges women face today. It's time to ask if woke feminism is truly moving us toward equality, or if it's causing more division. If you enjoyed this video and want to dive deeper into these issues, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Let's keep the conversation going in the comments. What do you think about woke feminism? Is it helping or hurting the cause? Let us know your thoughts.